Thank you with that, Jake. I'm just going to close my chat here. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wheatlalayu presentation for grants and funding for CCP. Emily and I were really grateful that we were asked to present today, and we hope that the next hour is informative, but not too much brain overload, and we get as much as feedback and dialogue as possible so that everyone can have some takeaways from our presentation. So let's get started, and I'll give a brief overview of our hour with us. So we're just going to do some introductions. Then we have a couple questions that Jake will help us do with the Mentimeter. And then we have a short video, more around 8 minutes, 7 minutes to 8 minutes. And then we want to get right into how it is about writing grants, seeking funding. Once you get the grant, some grant resources that we have, tips and tricks that we have had along the way, and then we'll save some space for question and answers. So, do you want to introduce yourself, Em?
Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Recalma. I am Numgis and Pentlatch. I've been with the Wheatlalayu for 2 years. I'm the community-led pilot coordinator, which is more nation-to-nation work. Due to circumstances, I have now taken on what's known as the book until we have somebody who's fully in charge of that. This is my first CCP conference, which is huge because there's over 100 people here. Community-led pilots, there's only 5 in BC, so I'm used to really small groups and getting to know people on a different level, but this is really exciting, so thanks for having us.
Yes, and thanks, Em. My name is Mariah Robinson. As you guys seen yesterday and heard my voice, I am from Numgis First Nations, have descendants from the Falatzis people, born and raised here in Alert Bay. Started working with Wheatlalayu in November 2018, and just really excited coming up to that 2nd year mark, and there's a lot of learning that we have done, especially in the area of grants and funding. So CCP has been a really profound experience in our community because we've been simultaneously going through all those 4 phases of planning, but implementing in actions as we can do those small wins when we can. And we're just really grateful to be here. And again, please continue to ask questions if there is something along the way as we're going through our presentation. So maybe Jake, could you do the Mentimeter? We really just want to ask 2 general questions to kind of get a feel of the audience that we have today.
Yeah, you bet. So we'll have to switch to screen share. Awesome.
Bless you. So the first question I want to ask everyone is, describe grant funding in 1 word to you. And you can go and we can put this link, thementi.com, into the chat and put in the code, or you can text the code. Wait for some of the words to come in. And how do you feel about grant writing or funding? What does it mean to you in 1 word? Hard. Yeah, no, it's definitely an experience there. Other ones coming in. Confusing. We have felt that for sure. Challenging. For more, if you guys can keep sharing, even on the chat. If you can't get onto this menti.com, Wordy, yeah, that's another one. And we'll give it another minute or so if others are still typing in theirs. Difficult, yes, it's very. Okay, we'll give it a last 30 seconds here and then we'll go into the next one. Unity, yeah, Unity, that's a good one. Go ahead, Jake, maybe let's go on to the next question. And the next question, have you ever written a grant? We kind of want to just get a feel of the audience that we have here. And if there's different comfort levels, different experience levels. You can write in the chat if you want to, or you can unmute yourself if you want to and answer that way. No, no, yes, no. And we'll give it another minute there. Emily, could you share, have you ever written a grant before?
Prior to this, no. I wrote my first grant when I came to the Wheatlalayu, and it had to do with housing. And I received a lot of support from the funders, who actually had to sit down with me and walk through the process and check off every page that I had to write in. And there was about half of it that I didn't have to fill out. So that was huge, realizing that there's only key parts of that grant that I had to really focus on. And I think the biggest part for me was the understanding that these government people are people too. And they're there to help you and support you, and really creating those relationships where I can text and say, hey, I need help with this. What does it mean here? And they're more than willing to be that support. Some of the stickier parts of the grant was adding up numbers that weren't lining up, and I had a little mini meltdown, and I'm missing $12,000 and I can't find it. And just really knowing the ins and outs of using the tools that we have really help.
Screen Shared Health Services, Corinne speaking.
Hi, Corinne.
Oh, sorry.
No worries, no worries. Well, we kind of have a feel. We have a 50-50 here, and those that we had a few on the chat that also answered us and sent us messages privately as well. So we kind of have like a 50-50 of those that have never written a grant and those that have. So, which is kind of our prediction of how we were trying to just make sure when we're presenting that we're coming across where those that are familiar with grants can still take away from today, and those that have never written a grant will take that chance and try and open up the first application and just start moving ahead with your grant writing. So Jake, maybe let's end it here on your screen sharing, and I'm going to screen share on ours. And I want to just share this video, and the video that we're going to share today is it's about 5 minutes with Simon Sinek, and about starting with why. And this is kind of the root of how I start grants, or how I carry myself in community, or when you're presenting to boards, chief and councils, your own staff. But here we are.
We assume even we know why we do what we do. But then how do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, Why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight? The Wright brothers beat them to it. There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery. And this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way. And it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it. When you call it your differentiating value proposition, USP, but very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we're better. And we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products. And nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into 3 major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle 2 sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right, because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers.
Okay, everyone, sorry, that's kind of like the snippet that we wanted to show everyone. Is anyone have any thoughts that they want to share with Simon Sinek's view on why, and especially on the last part where it talks about, you know, hiring people to believe what we believe, knowing our community stories and we believe what we believe, because a lot of this filtrates into grant writing and successful grant writing and funding. Is there any thoughts that people want to share in the chat, or unmute yourself to share anything?
Welcome back, Ella.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's carry
Thank
on.
you.
Oh, go ahead.
No, hi. I'll just try to mute myself. Oh, hi. Sorry, I had a scare. My sister's been trying to get better again from stroke. So I think she might have had another little stroke. So I had to go run and see. So they're taken to the hospital to see if there's anything else they can do for her. So I'll just wait for our health nurse to message me and let me know what's going on with her. So sorry I had to leave, but I've taken this grant writing before, but I just want to keep on top of it so then I can understand more on writing grants or helping or CCP worker with grants. So that's why I'm trying to participate in your guys' session. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and prayers to your sister.
Thank you very much.
I think you're just here to listen. I know how it is to want to distract yourself and keep busy.
Yes.
Thanks for being
Thank you.
Just unmute, see if you want to ask a question.
Hi, it's Rhonda from the Iskut Band.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, so thank you for today. Obviously, We've enjoyed all the information, and we really enjoy the collaboration that we're able to do with nations right across our country. It's really interesting that we're able to collaborate as Indigenous people with each other. It makes me really happy. I'm a child protection social worker, and I've taken a new role as a human resource worker, so I really enjoy this collaboration. I wanted to join the grant and funding groups, which is this, so we could collaborate, and if there's information we could share, or is there an email? So because I'd like to know all the information, like how does different communities do it? If there's grants that are more green and more harmonious with the environment and stuff that aligns more with the Indigenous culture, I would love to hear or know about information like that.
No, thank you, Rhonda, for that. I think that's a good segue into if you're wanting to be a part of an email out, or if there's an opportunity to do Zooms again in this collaboration. If you can put your email in the chat, and Emily can write them down, and we can try and send out an email afterwards to keep beyond just this hour if there's opportunities to continue collaborating and sharing networks, or the Slack channel as well. But
To use money. Okay. It's wrong because there's only one E in there. Thank you so much. I would really appreciate the information on the funding, and then the any
on your new role.
any pros and cons.
Thank you. So with that, we're gonna just get on to, let me just see, I'm having all these yeah, here we are. So kind of just about us, like I just want to give an overview on reasoning why we asked a few of the CCP workshops, why we were successful to present this, why we were a good fit. Our success in what we were able to do for Wheat Lalayu around grant and fundings was we increased our funding by nearly $1 million. And it's not just on grant applications, but it's been I would say properly submitting those forms to ISK as well for our annual fundings that we're getting. But there are a lot of them has been external funding pots as well. So our success has been, between Emily and I and the 11 staff that I have, is we've been able to focus around funding and grants as a core central next to culture around those staff training opportunities. And we had a grant writing workshop with Ellen Hughes, who is a really amazing facilitator, who came and spent 2 days with us and left my staff with a binder of an abundance of resources, and she kept you on those emailing networks. And I took it with her probably another, I think 8 years ago was when I first started getting into grant writing. And it always seemed like a really daunting process. But the successes that we have had has been what Emily stated earlier, was positive relationships with funders, and we'll send those links further on in our presentation, was staying in contact, making a relationship beyond just your funder, but to stay connected in all those areas. And like what Rhonda said, like you're the new roles that you move into, call them and say, hey, this is my new role. I'm not sure if you have another colleague or another network, and allow it to be this web that just continues to grow for your nations and the work that you do. Another success that we have had is we're hungry for funding. We're knocking down doors, and if someone says they didn't have it this time or this year, we say, okay, we'll call you. We'll call you in next month. We'll call you when the next call out is.
Remember my name, because I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to keep applying.
Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah. And we have, you know, and if we get a deny, it's not to be discouraged, but we just alter it. Or one of the things that I can say is, if your application wasn't successful, to ask them what could have made it more successful for you and the fit that you have for that particular funding, and whatever feedback they provide can help your experience in grant writing. The other one has been the strategic of collaborating funding dollars, and not and not being afraid to be innovative, to overlap your funding sources.
And funders love that. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in here. Funders love that you're going to stack their funding and they're going to be a part of something bigger than what they have to offer. Mm-hmm. If they can only allocate X amount of dollars to this one project and it costs twice that amount, you say, yes, I'm coming to you first, but I'm also going to apply to these other grants and we're going to put it together to make this a better place. Mm-hmm. And they love being a part of something bigger. Mm-hmm. Just like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a good thing.
Another success that we have had has been, along with that driven, is knowing who we are. And like going back to that video of why we wanted to share it is why. Why do you need money? Funders know we need it, but why do you feel you need it? How is it going to help you and benefit the story of your CCPs? And knowing that why inside and out, like we believe we want more well-being for our community members. How we're going to do it is we're going to offer this weekly programming, 5 hours a week, you know, like being more specific on knowing the details of what you want to offer. And because grant funders, they're reading probably 20, 30 applicants in some industries, and you want to be able to capture their attention so well because they can picture and vision that project just as much as you were when you were writing it. And so the more that you can be so concise on your own story, because we can present here and tell you our experience, but I don't know your community from community to know why your community is going to be successful. And we just keep practicing that and trying to create that success. And again, we're going to go further into how you can do these things so that you have this template or this master copy, so that when you're writing grant after grant, it's not repeating and trying to remember in your brain, but it's in a file that you just copy and paste towards. Another success is myself as the administrator, in my own perspective, is I have a background in grant writing. And so being at the forefront to be able to filter that support down just as much as those needs and those visions and projects are coming from community, it's working really hand in hand and in unison. So whoever administrators and board members and councils that you have in your communities, it's really important that all levels of the nation just complement each other in that, because it's a team approach, but the success comes from the follow through. Mm-hmm. And that's where myself as the support comes in for our nation, is that I'm all for it, you know, and I love that initiative. When Emily wrote the housing one, I kind of put those risk factors in my employees, or I'm like, I believe in you, run with it and come back and show me and I'll help polish it. But really having that belief in your staff members.
Yeah, that the belief in your staff members and that support from your coworkers, that's huge. And that really, there's something innate about our people where the confidence level isn't there, but hearing, I believe in you, you can do this, go ahead. Mm-hmm. I don't know the disconnect, like you hear it when you're a kid or you tell it to your kids and they go forward with it. But when you hear it as an adult, you're like, yeah, okay, mm-hmm. I believe in me too. But that faith in having someone say that is really empowering, and empowerment is contagious, and we want everyone to feel empowered and deserving. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to speak to housing because that's what I know, is our people haven't had proper housing in 40 years. That's the last time we had housing dollars.
Yeah. In our community.
And the environment that they live in, they feel undeserving of nice things or of a healthy, safe home. And just having that passion and that heart to be in those homes and to do those assessments and to carry that forward into the grant and to carry that forward into a conversation with the funders. Having that passion behind it really helps, because if you believe in it, you can share that belief and other people will believe in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Before I get emotional.
Our challenges though, like those go hand in hand. The challenges that we have had and faced has been capacity, because my background has been grant writing. We now have grown from 6 staff members to 11 staff members, and not one staff member has had ever prior experience in grant writing until I come around. The confidence level. And so my perspective as an administrator has been the follow through, being able to pass that grant and inspire a staff member to write something, but to allow that empowerment that I believe in you to carry forward with it now. Because it's one thing to write a grant, it's another thing to follow through with the tracking, the monitoring, the reporting, and not saving it until that year fiscal end, but learning those tips and tricks to do it as you go with your project if you're successful. So like that's been a challenge. Is we had one of our sisters write a grant, successful, first time ever doing it, got that acceptance letter, but then got the funding agreement and was like, oh crap, you mean I have to do monthly what? Like I have to follow up with what? Like it became that intimidation, and that, you know, that's nothing that I would ever want any of my staff members to be set up for, is that surprise. But it is the reality. It is the reality of, we've done the grant writing training, but now we're looking at, okay, we need that part 2 training now. So you write the grant, you get the grant, but now what? Because that's hasn't really come out of that initial training we've done. So we've been trying to just really make it personal on how our own capacities can get better at grant writing. The other challenge that we have had has been across agencies. Wheatlalayu is a real gray mixed agency. It's really, if you want to look at a friendship center, we're kind of like the friendship center context that is anyone that's not Numgees out of Kwakwaka'wakw. But yet there's just a historical, there's literature, and every nation is so profound in their own history and their origin stories that funders love that. Funders love those areas. But for Wheatlalayu's sake, because we've had a decade of a lot of politics and fallbacks where our doors were going to close permanently, and the fear of our own people, but having to reestablish that brand, our challenge has been every agency having to repeat that story and fight that we're not just a nonprofit society, we're actually a multi-tribal council basically. But because of the certain eligibilities or certain policy and regulations, it's a really gray area that we've had to navigate through. So the challenging part is you know, some funders we've had that are successful, but there's others that I'm like, you know, I've talked to you for 5 meetings now. I don't have time to talk to you for the 6th. You're either going to fund us or you're not. But, you know, trying to be really create those healthy boundaries, like stop wasting my time. We'll come see you next year. But I shouldn't have to keep fighting for my identity for you to believe in what we're believing in, because there's a lot of others that have believed in us. So we've been just rolling with those ways. Mm-hmm. It's not saying that I'm cutting that tie. I'm just leaving it for the time being, you know, because it's working on that identity for the organization and the nation in itself. But I just want to move ahead as we move ahead, because I'll continue to go through the grant itself. So when you're writing the grant and the master template, it's why is the funding necessary? When you think of that video, who is your community and who is going to benefit? And you really want to have this on a Microsoft Word template. And what are your goals and needs? You have your CCP, but like what Jesse mentioned on our first day, it's really that bird's eye view. So you really want to start breaking it down into those departments and who can focus on what areas and what are your small priorities and your short wins that you can accumulate this year or this quarter. before you move into the years ahead. You really want to understand when you're writing a grant where you're located and where your project will take place. Will it be in your band office? Will it be in your health center? Will it be in your gyms? Will it be outside? Will it be in multiple spaces? But you really need to, the more detail you can put, it's just going to help you be successful. When will your program be delivered? Will it start date and end date? But will it be weekly? Will it be twice a week? You know, you really want to figure out how many hours in a week, in a housing context and a capital context, the start date and end dates, but also being, if it's a water service replacement, knowing the demographics of how many homes you want to fix up. It's stats really matter. That qualitative and quantitative data really matter in grant writing. And how will you deliver it? And who will deliver it? So it's knowing, is it elders with a coordinator? Is it your coordinator? Are you hiring somebody? But it's really ultimately knowing your community and knowing those statistics and having it all. It could be messy, it could be polished, but no matter what, everyone has it. And if you function on today's technology with Teams or Slack, putting that template where all of your staff members can see. Our organization, we're so close and small in a small office that everyone knows our demographics. We do monthly distributions, and thankful to COVID, we've been doing distributions constantly. So everyone on our team knows our demographics of how many elders, how many youth. And then it's really knowing your leaders, knowing who is your cultural leaders, who is employment ready, who is going to take that initiative from you. Because also writing grants, you can go for $1,000 grant, or you can go for a $50,000 grant. But sometimes that $1,000 grant is worth so much more time and energy, unnecessary energy, than the $50,000 one. So once you get more familiar, you're going to realize what is actually worth time and energy when it comes to grants and funding. So grant resources that we have had. Indigenous Services Canada has been amazing. We have a really positive relationship with the individuals we have met with Wheat Lalayu, and they're supportive on making sure wherever we're eligible, you're tapping into that. And if we aren't eligible, we ask them, where are we eligible? We're really hungry that way. First Nations Health Authority, from MOUs to their winter wellness, they have a very multi-level funding opportunities that have annual callouts. The First Peoples Cultural Council, amazing around language and language gathering opportunities that we have had. Jordan's Principle, pushing the envelope on every area that can be successful, and their process isn't as tedious, where it's just making sure you have ducks in a row to support that application, doctor's notes, teacher's notes, whatever, to make sure that wraparound support is there for children. Play West with Right to Play is very amazing on Aboriginal pilot projects, which is physical, leisure, Aboriginal youth, I believe it was. Physical activity, leisure, and Aboriginal youth was what Play stood for. But that's a lot of land-based stuff, and where we're going and across Canada and across the world nowadays is this land-based approach, and A Right to Play has been a really powerful grant funder for us. The New Horizons Seniors Program for our seniors has been another opportunity where we did a lot of language and mentorship and bridging those intergenerational connections. The Civil Forfeiture grants, the crime prevention, but they have so many Indigenous rebuilding and healing grants. If you just type in that, and that's with the province of BC. Again, sorry for those that are across Canada. For us, we haven't really branched out other than BC, and if we have, we've been redirected back to BC programming for us. And so I do want to apologize to those that are from other provinces. Then there's the iSpark, Indigenous Sports Physical Activity Recreations Council, has been amazing. We've had others, but a lot of it that for Wheatlalayu's sake and where our funding has come from has been really vamping up Indigenous Service Canada funding streams and using any opportunity we can that is eligible to you as a nation, and being unique in how you spend it, because grant funding and all that isn't just about writing the application, it's how you're envisioning those dollars and getting your employees to believe in that CCP, believe in your story, so that it's being spent, so that it becomes an attraction for more funding. We're looking at, I'm sorry, I'm just moving the chat window here. Simplifying your proposals. So once you get your proposal, is creating a system, a grant binder. And this is something I just had. I used to have files and files and files of our grants when we received them. But now I have it in a binder where it's my Bible. I just take this one Bible is what I call it. And it's wherever I go, every grant that we have had, successful or not, per fiscal year. So when you open up your binder, and I can share a template on Slack where it's kind of like a table of contents, and you have your number divisions, so that wherever you're going to your council meetings or to a new opportunity for a funder, they don't necessarily need to see what's always in it, but you have it. You have it for your reference and your reporting. And it's a great way to simplify so that you feel rejuvenated, because if you get so caught up in paperwork,
oh my gosh.
yeah, you get discouraged and fall behind, I would say. Save your grants, digital and paper. Save them over year after year. I still have some that I wrote from the very first year, and it helped me create that master copy, because I found at the very beginning I was repeating myself. And there's so many eloquent ways we can describe our nations, but it just helps save time and energy. And then same thing, the master file, but also pushing every opportunity for the administration pots.
Oh my gosh.
Not every funder is like 10%, maybe 12%, some 15%, but keep pushing for that, because when you're writing your administration portions, that's your bookkeeper, that's your executive directors, that's for other opportunities that can help keep your nations thriving in a really positive direction.
And when all of that is in order, everything moves a lot smoother. I want to make sure everybody in the organization knows that I appreciate their support and their work towards this, because I'm not the one cutting checks. I'm the go-between, but I also know that it takes 4 or 5 signatures to get something done. And that's where that pot would go into.
I just want to try and be mindful of our time.
Oh, yes.
And then questions, like I think we can lay out a lot of what would you say, templates, I guess, templates, so you can have easy questionnaires on Slack. We didn't have them up here today, but it's just trying to help take away that we've been successful, although we feel like we're at the very beginning, and just finally tapping into making sure ISK PDFs are filled out accordingly, because as simple as misfiling our nominal roll helped us get more money when we realize those gaps. And when you take on something that is so outdated or not up to date, you would be amazed at how it can increase funding, with the simple adding a few, correcting a few wrongs. But I just really want to leave this time to, is there any questions in specific on grant writing that you can, that anyone has, whether it's chat? Yeah, Lorraine, we will send like the templates, we'll put them on Slack. And if you did put your email down, we can put them in there. But I really like that suggestion, Rhonda, that you had of creating this collaboration ongoing, because when we are designing this space today, I didn't want it to be so much information load, but more or less something that you guys can take away and feel a little bit more confident in the process of how you go for grants and funding for your own nations. Is there any comments or suggestions? Thank you for those that continue to add your email to the chat.
Sorry, I'm right there. Whoops.
Yeah. And if I could say, one of the other ones is if your nation has a Share Successful grant. We've had VOA from FNHA, which was visiting our ancestors. We had a language gathering from the First Peoples Cultural Council. How many grants can I apply for? You can apply for as many as you want. I think we have, in the last 20 months, I think I've probably written close to 20. Which doesn't seem like a lot if you think of one per month, but I used to write them out like 3 or 5 a month. But the challenge has been follow through, and the reality is whatever grant you get, there's going to be a reporting structure or an accountable structure where you have to be accountable to funders. So when you do for example, we did the same grant that we did with the Family Violence Prevention Program. Used to be blanket making in our community before I came on board, and it used to be 8 people, and they bought supplies, and it was just a small per capita, which was only about $22,000 or something. But then I restructured it into where it changed, and it went up to 7,000, and that's because it was based on the per capita. So again, those amounts of really knowing your community can help you on just a per capita when it's on membership numbers. And now we do a cultural night, and we just put all of that back into our singers. And now what used to only be 8 people max and had 5 people, I think, active, every Thursday for 20 weeks prior to COVID, we had to shut down. We had 70 people every Thursday doing a cultural night with our people. And out of that, we created a log. We got rattles from our artists. And now it's overlapped that vision where we got the crime prevention grant to do vest making, and where we're making about 125 vests for all of our community members and adding children. So at the end, we should hopefully have close to 200 vests, but it will all have our logo on it. So we're really about branding and making people feel belonging. I'm just looking at other things here. Yeah, we can post the funding sources we mentioned. The email that we have that we're going to put there is with Stephanie Gabrielle. She's with an ISK email out, and she's kind of just my own source of reliance now, where she emails you if you're on her email list with all the upcoming grants that are going to be due or what are open right now. And she's a really valuable email that you need to be a part of if you're into grant writing. Capacity and resources to deliver. Capacity to deliver is knowing your roles and responsibilities. That's a really great point, Lorraine. Is really knowing your roles. One of the things that I try and refrain from is burnout for any of my staff, and wearing more than beyond 3 hats. When it comes to events, though, I really encourage teamwork. The more hands, the lighter the work. And so when we have an event coming up, I pull in everybody. I don't rely on one department to deliver something when it's something for community and your entire nation. So thankfully our board is very active and engaged and flexible that way with the leadership style that I bring, because we're doing a haunted house right now, right? And of course, if you're in SA or if you're in housing, yeah, haunted house doesn't seem like it's your thing, but no, I pull in everyone because I'm like, it's community, it's for our kids, it's for our people. It's the first event we've been able to do since all of this COVID has started. So it's really becoming medicine when you allow your staff members to actually act on the ground and be side by side with their family members and your community.
And that's a whole big part of the community feeling that everybody's there for them, and that there's a security. If I see you in this area, I'm going to be comfortable to come and talk to you about this in another space.
Mm-hmm.
And that security and safety is a really big new feeling since we had our CCP begin.
Mm-hmm.
Since Mariah has been on board, since the new governance has been established. Prior to all of that, it was not a safe space. It was not a comfortable space. It wasn't a space I was thinking, oh, I'm going to go stop by there. It was a begrudging feeling of, I do not want to go to that office. But now everyone's welcome. COVID granted, like COVID's just messed everybody up.
Yeah. Another successful grant that we've done and we just recently received was through Island Health, and forgive me for not having them on our list, but knowing your Island Health region or your health region directors and those that are around the Aboriginal programs, because right now if you're into land-based food security and you want to build capacity and get your youth hunting and fishing and preserving and plant-based, the opportunities are endless right now. And my only hope is that funders will live those roles beyond COVID, because that's been pushing the envelope at funders tables, that is a necessity for our communities, that you can't just think it's a one-time opportunity, and that it has to be sustainable in a year round and not one pocket funding.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, a background that I have is with the PHABC as a board of director for public health. And so again, like I try and just be an advocate for our First Nations people. And when funders try and do pilot projects, I'm always pushing for, you can't treat one nation or all of us the same. One community, you have to really build relationships in our community, not for our community to be fishing for you and finding where you are. Because some communities need capital dollars, some communities really just need programming dollars. The other one that COVID has really brought light into is paid employed positions for hunters and fishermen that I keep pushing for as well. And not just that commercial style, but on a community level. So again, like being that advocacy at a funder's table to push policies and regulations for grant writing for our communities to make it not so tedious and abstract has been a goal as well. Any questions? Trying to just be mindful. We have, I think, a minute left here before we move on to.
My one little add-on is to really promote the mental health, because if our people are connected and on the land and living in safe, healthy homes, they're going to feel better about themselves and they're going to be better to their families and better to each other. 57 seconds. But promote mental health within those grants, because it means something.
And it may be a morbid stat that you want to have, but you really want to have drug overdose stats. You really want to have your death rate stats in place for all of BC and all of Canada for First Nations people. Like a lot of funders really want research attached to why you are doing what you are doing and why you believe this money will help you in the well-being of your community. But again, thank you for everyone for joining us. So hard to kind of engage when we're not here, and the comfort of, thank you.
That's it.